So yeah, we're going to do a bit of a whistle-stop tour through business etiquette today, and really focus on why we're talking about it. It's probably easiest to think of it as business etiquette as a set of guidelines, really. Guidelines for manners and expected behaviour when you're in a professional setting. I think for a lot of us, the thought of engaging with professional people for the first time, either in person or probably more likely these days, virtually, can cause a lot of anxiety. We worry about what to say. We worry about what if we say the wrong thing and mess it up and we look foolish. And we worry about what they think of us. But if you have an awareness of what's expected of you in terms of how to behave and how to communicate effectively, it really will help you feel more comfortable and safe in any professional situations you're likely to find yourself in as a student or a graduate. Okay, so clearly when you meet employers and senior academics, alumni, or any other professional, you want to make a good impression on them. So showing you understand that what's expected and how to behave is really going to make you stand out and likely to make them remember you for all the right reasons. Now, I should say that guidelines for business etiquette are going to vary slightly from country to country and different cultures. So it's really important that you do your research and you understand what's expected in the country that you're considering working or studying in. For the purpose of this webinar, of course, we're going to focus on the UK, but we will give you some links in the follow-up handout to research other countries at the end of this webinar so you can do your research. So what are we going to cover? Well, here's what we're going to cover. I think it's fair to say that we're all slowly getting used to the new normal of living our day-to-day lives online, aren't we really? So much so, in fact, according to a recent Institute of Student Employers survey, during the current coronavirus pandemic, employers have really shifted a lot of their recruitment processes online now and pretty much cancelled most face-to-face activities. So online recruitment may well be the new normal. Video, email, social media are likely to be the way you communicate with employers and they communicate with you. Now, of course, but also in the foreseeable future. So you need to feel ready, prepared and confident in managing your online presence. Okay, apologies for that. We're going to take you through each of these common scenarios or situations and give you tips and hints and strategies for really creating the right professional impression. We'll start with some of the areas you might feel a bit more confident with, such as written communication, emails, letters, and then move on to some slightly more scary topics, such as networking and video interviews. But to be honest, if you really do follow our simple tips and suggestions, these really needn't be scary at all, I promise you. So, emails, first and foremost. Is this an example of a professional email? What do you think? Email can be a bit of a danger zone in terms of how easily we can get it wrong and make a bad impression. The problem is we often think of it as an informal, instant and spontaneous way of communicating, and we can kind of bang out an email without really thinking, and that's where the danger lies. In fact, because of the sheer volume of messages we're reading and sending every day, we may be prone to making embarrassing errors, and these mistakes can have serious professional consequences. By the way, this isn't a professional email, in case you had any doubts. Surprisingly, perhaps, plenty of professionals still don't know how to use email appropriately. So let's have a little look at a checklist for you. Here are our top tips. So first of all, it's important you include a clear, direct subject line. So examples could be, meeting date changed, quick question about your presentation, or regarding my interview date. People often decide whether to open an email based on the subject line, so making it engaging, make them want to open it. Number two, an appropriate greeting. Steer clear of colloquial expressions like hi guys or hey. As I said before, email's notoriously informal and it can be easy to forget about professional boundaries. Even if you've met the recipient, say at a networking event or a presentation, don't be over familiar and assume they're one of your best mates. Number three, keep tabs on your tone. Just as jokes can get lost in translation, tone is easy to misconstrue. Without context, you'd get from vocal cues and facial expressions. So it's easy to come off as more abrupt than you might have intended. So you might have meant to be straightforward, but they might have read it as you being angry and curt. Number 4, of course, the professional email address. partygirl@gmail.com might sound fun as a student, but not so professional in a workplace. So best to change it. Proofread every message. Your mistakes won't go unnoticed, and don't rely on spell checkers. Classic errors like pubic sector when you meant to say public sector won't get picked up by a spell checker. So read and reread your emails a few times, preferably out loud, before you press send. 6, double check that you've selected the right recipient. So really pay attention when you're typing the name from your address book to the email's to line. It's easy to select the wrong name, which can be embarrassing to you and the person who received the email. I once sent an email intended for a friend about planning a girls' night out to my boss by mistake. He wasn't impressed. Awkward. 7, be cautious with humour. Humour can get lost easily, again in translation, without the right tone or facial expressions. In a professional exchange, it's better to leave humour out altogether unless you really know the recipient well. Also, something you think might be funny might not be funny to somebody else. And again, you've got cultural differences to consider as well, especially when people can't see your body language or pick up any of those visual cues. Number 8, remember, online nothing is confidential. This is really important. It's always safest to assume that others can see what you write, so never write anything negative or derogatory that you wouldn't want others to see. Number 9, add the email address last. Again, this is a safety precaution. You don't want to send an email accidentally before you finish writing and proofreading the message. And yes, I've done that before too. So I know how embarrassing it can be when you have to send a follow-up email to explain. And 10, finally, it's all about context. As with all business etiquette, write emails that mirror and reflect the culture and tone of the company, sector, colleague, or person you've met or are working with. This takes time to get right, but it comes with experience and practice. So let's move on to job offer acceptances. So congratulations, you've been offered a job offer. Okay, so for some of you, it isn't the case right now, but it will happen, and it's easy to get carried away in the excitement, but don't rush to push the accept button right away. Responding to job offers requires careful handling, particularly if you want time to consider, negotiate salary or terms, or have multiple offers to choose from. Lucky you. At the same time, employers need to feel that you're enthusiastic about the job, or the offer might not stay on the table for too long. Many employers to let a candidate know that an offer is on the way. For you, planning what to say when accepting a job offer will make sure you don't forget to ask something important. So note down any questions and key points you want to make and keep this to hand for when the phone rings. Don't feel pressure to accept a job offer immediately over the phone or to negotiate salary and benefits straight away. If you're happy with the offer, say you'd like to accept it and confirm this in writing via email or letter. You could end your phone conversation by saying something like, "Thank you again for the offer. I'm really excited about the opportunity. I look forward to receiving it in writing, and if I have any questions, I'll be in touch." So how do you accept a job offer in writing? Once you've had the offer in writing, you can send an email or a letter of acceptance. The general rules for email and letters are the same, and you can accept by either. Generally speaking, if you've had the offer via email, then accepting via email is probably acceptable these days. But if you do use email, remember to keep a copy of that for your records, because that's your version of accepting an offer in writing. To be safe, you might want to attach a formal letter to your email as well. As you can see in this example, the email or letter should convey your enthusiasm for the role, and remember to include those key terms of employment such as salary, benefits and jobs, so your understanding of what you're going to be offered. You should also state your proposed start date and express your thanks for any conditions agreed. If you've got a holiday booked, say, I know unlikely in the current scenario, but let's be optimistic. It's usually okay to ask to defer your start date, but make sure again you emphasize how keen you are to join the company. you send a formal letter, it should be businesslike and include your name, address, and contact details. Address it to the person who made you the offer, and remember to proofread it always before sealing the envelope. What about declining a job offer? As part of the job hunting process, sometimes you will need to turn down a job offer, but again, think carefully. If you change your mind, it's unlikely that you can go back on that decision right away. Even though you won't be working for the organisation, it's in your interest to be polite and professional. You never know when you might want to work for that employer in future, so it pays not to burn any bridges and keep things positive. It is considered polite to phone the employer to decline a job offer before you confirm in writing. Make sure you do this as soon as possible. Companies also value feedback just as much as we as interviewees do, and they'll be grateful for your honest but tactful opinions and reasons for not accepting the position. Keep it short, upbeat, and end the conversation on a positive note. For example, you might say on a telephone call, thank you so much for the offer you made me on Monday. I was really impressed with your company, but unfortunately I've decided to decline the offer. I didn't feel the role offered me the opportunity for career progression I'm looking for, but I'm grateful for your time and will of course confirm my decision in writing. So here's what it could look like in writing. Again, you need to be clear and to the point. People are busy, so don't worry and have anxiety over, apologizing and talking too much. Keep it simple and short. Similar to the phone conversation, start by thanking the employer for the opportunity. Say it might have been a difficult decision, but you've decided to decline. Give a brief reason, using tact where possible. The reasons you mention don't have to be the main reasons you're declining, although it's always preferable to kind of be honest if you can. End the letter on a positive note. When you decline a job offer by letter, again, address it to the person who made you the offer. Don't forget to include your name, address, and contact details. And of course, that all-important proofreading before you send it. The flip side of all this is that it's inevitable that at some stage, most of us will experience the pain of the rejection letter or phone call. It's part of life, and it's important we learn how to deal with it so that we can reflect and build our resilience and bounce back going forward. There are two ways you can handle how you respond: the right way and the wrong way. Social media is not the place to vent anger and frustration. Posts can be shared and seen by employers. And is this the kind of impression you want them to have of you? It's hard, but try not to take it personally and try to get some constructive feedback from the experience if you can. So let's look at a better approach. Here's our suggestion. So again, I think you need to accept that you haven't been offered the job. Thank them for the opportunity, however. All experience of interviews and recruitment processes are useful and valuable. And it's always a good idea to ask for any feedback. If you weren't successful this time round, it would really help you in the future to perhaps know where you could have improved and performed better. Employers aren't obligated to give you feedback, but many employers will try to be helpful and constructive and take any comments or constructive comments in the spirit to which they're intended. Don't get defensive, don't get angry. Simply listen and reflect on what you can do better. Employers are trying to be helpful after all. And again, who knows, in future, you might want to apply to that company again. So leaving your impression on them as someone who's respectful and polite is going to make a good impression. So let's move on to speculative letters and speculative approaches. Not all graduate vacancies are advertised, and in the current coronavirus situation, many employers aren't clear about their recruitment needs or haven't updated their websites. So you may find yourself writing a few speculative letters or emails. Making a speculative letter means getting in touch with an organisation to ask whether they have a suitable position for you, despite the fact that they aren't currently advertising a particular vacancy. It usually involves sending a cover letter and a CV. This approach is really quite common in some sectors, particularly in the media, charity work, design and environmental work. It's also useful as a way of approaching smaller employers who don't recruit graduates onto formal graduate schemes, or to find jobs in highly specialised fields or a specific location. Just like applying for advertised vacancies, it needs to be a targeted approach to be productive. So, as you can see in our example here, before you write anything, research the employer, do your research, get an awareness of the sector, and then it will help you tailor your letter. Establish a personal contact at the company. Always write to a named individual rather than just Dear HR Department. Be focused but also open-minded. If you're interested in any suitable opportunity that's likely to occur, make that clear that you're flexible. And as I said before, tailoring is so important. Employers might get loads of letters like these with students saying, you know, I want a job with your company, what can you offer me? It's really important that you emphasize what you can do for the employer rather than what you want from them. You're more likely to impress and have a positive response if you can offer your skills matched to the company's requirements, showing that you've done your research. Much more impressive. It's also good practice to follow up any speculative approach with a telephone call. If you haven't heard back within, say, a week or two, just to check that the employer received the letter or the email. Speaking on the phone can be a bit scary, but if you plan what you want to say, you'll feel so much more confident. A professional phone call could go something like this. You could start by saying, hello, is that Mr. Green speaking? My name's David Brown. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Manchester, where I studied biology. I sent you a letter 2 weeks ago, and I was wondering if you received it and have had a chance to read it. I appreciate you'll probably be very busy, but do you have 10 minutes now just for a quick chat about any possible opportunities with your company? If this isn't a good time, I could call back at a better time to suit you. At the end of the call, thank them for their time and maybe summarize any follow-up actions that you've discussed with them, things you're going to do, things you're going to send them. We have a really good job search guide at the Careers Service. It's in our handout that we'll send to you, but it contains lots of examples of different sorts of speculative letters for different occasions. So whether you're inquiring about work or just to meet someone to talk about their role, find out a little bit more about it, you can get really clear and well thought through examples to have a look at and to research.